G'day, everybody. So, in this episode, we're going to cover the peaceful power transfer assurance. Point number 8 on the Reformationist Party platforms is the peaceful transfer of power assurance. This is supposed to deal with situations such as basically, like the Al Gore versus George W. Bush situation that happened in the year 2000. Now, if you're not familiar with that situation, you can click a link in the wiki thing below for Wikipedia. But basically, in the year 2000, the Florida became way too close to call, and they had things called hanging chads. There was discrepancies and things like that, and there was a lot of debate over who won Florida. Was it George Bush or was it Al Gore? So basically, Al Gore eventually conceded after the Supreme Court judged in the ruling of President George W. Bush's favor about recounting. So basically, George W. Bush originally won Florida. They were doing recounts because it was way too close to call, and so they were in the midst of recounting, and then they were still sort of in the recounting process when December rolled around, and the Supreme Court's like, we're going to step in and make a decision because it's getting it's been a month, right? The election happened in November. It was still already into December, and all this kind of stuff was happening. So, and the court ruled in favor of Bush, and Gore conceded at the end of that, and the rest is history. Now, a lot of people have been concerned because if something like that happens again with our current situation between Biden and Trump, things can get a little dicey and a little ugly. There was already a lot of people in the Democrat Party who were really not happy that Gore conceded and that the Supreme Court decision went that way that it did. And you can only imagine if something like that were to happen again, particularly given the growing divide and the growing contention that the parties have had over each other over the past few decades since that situation. So this would be a constitutional amendment. Very simple, very easy, very clean. You can see it on the whiteboard in front of you. It only takes up one whiteboard worth of space, but we'll go over it in a little more winded detail. So, it is called the January SCOTUS referendum. Basically, the Supreme Court has to make a decision 2 weeks before the inauguration day. And so basically, how it starts off is that you go through your normal process. There's a too close to call situation in a state or, something or other. So, the two political parties or whatever fight in the courts to get the recounts or not. The courts will say that, and they'll go to appeals and all this stuff. If by the time January rolls around, if by the time Christmas comes, and the holidays end up coming, and the New Year's coming, then basically the Supreme Court will hear, just as they did with the Al Gore case. Now, for those for that week, that first week of January, those first opening weeks. You're going to have your arguments, you're going to have your things, and, both sides are going to make their cases. The Supreme Court is going to make a decision. Did Republicans win the presidency, or did is the decision in favor of the situation that's favorable with red winning, or is it favorable for blue winning? Basically, did the Republican win the presidency, or did the Democrat win the presidency, based on the illegal arguments being made, right? So here is the thing. Here is the big catch. Here's the big kicker. If there is contention between the two parties when it goes to the Supreme Court, both parties need to decide if either of them are going to concede at that point. Once they go into the Supreme Court, it's all out of their hands, basically. You go, okay, you're going to go to the Supreme Court, you can't take no backsies. And the reason you say no backsies is because of the case of a draw, which we'll go over. That's the most interesting case. So the first case is that more than 75% of the Supreme Court says, yeah, the red people won. Yay, Republicans in this case, obviously, in the United States. You'd be like, okay, red wins. like it's near unanimous. It's more than 3/4 of the justices agree that it favors the Republican, right? Or on the opposite, right? And then that means the Republican becomes president. Same thing with the opposite, right? If it's near unanimous, Democrat wins, right? So blue wins. Near unanimous, that person is like, okay. Because basically, if the Supreme Court is near unanimous, then it's probably really obvious. Like, maybe there was foul play going on. Maybe there's some weird going on with the other side. And maybe the other side is just arguing for argument's sake. But it's really black and white, clear as crystal, right? Justices sometimes do, go, okay, yeah, this is, even though it's not favoring me politically, that's that. Now, as far as the bench goes and the bench makeup and all the arguments about that that's point number 5 in our thing. One Supreme Court nomination per presidential term, which we'll go over on another future video. For now, we're talking about this one. So, the interesting thing that happens is when there's a draw, when there's less than 75%, when there is a mixed agreement, when there's no unanimous decision. In that case, we go with the president that has the third most electoral votes. What? Yeah, we go with the president that had the third most electoral votes. Well, Tantru, that's always 0 because, the two parties and all that. I know, okay. So if there's electoral count tie, then we'll go by popular vote. The third most voted on president, popularly, if the electoral college counts are equal. Okay? So you're like, with Tantru, that would mean that, like, the person that barely anyone voted for in the third party ticket would become the president. And I go, yeah, but we wouldn't be at each other's throats about it. Right? See, the whole point of this referendum and the whole idea of this concept is to prevent civil war. That is the whole thing. And if the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, because I'm just going to call them as they are, red or blue, blah, 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 right? And those are just symbologies. But if the Republican and the Democrat Party are so politically toxic that they won't let go, right? That they will never let go of their power, that they will, fight it out into the Supreme Court. Then if they are equal and they're drawn out, then, that means that the general public is also going to be at ends, right? They're also going to be very contentiously divided. And if that's the case, no matter which way you slice it, if the Supreme Court decides one way or the other, it means that you're going to have a president that half of the country hates and doesn't believe should be there. They have strong feelings about. So that is an issue. If you let somebody in who nobody has really strong feelings about, that lowers the tension. You see what I mean? And plus, it's sort of like kids fighting in the back seat, right? Let's treat the Supreme Court like this is the back seat. It's like, kids, you want to fight in the back seat? Okay, let's fight in the back seat. All right, fight. Okay, like, we don't know who clearly was in the wrong here, so I don't care who started it. We're finishing it, right? So if there's no clear indication on who started it or what's going wrong, then you finish it by not giving either of them what they want, right? There is a third option, and that option is you kids are being naughty and sitting there. Go to your room, think it over. Good luck on the next election, right? Grow up a little bit, and we're going to give this third party guy a go. And heck, the people might even like them. They give the independent guy 4 years. Couldn't be any worse than, having resentful, angry people behind the helm who are seen as delegitimate for, like, all the things. Obviously, the person might have some dealings with Congress that might be very interesting if they're a third-party candidate like that. But to me, it's like what happens in the Congress really is an emulation of what happens with the people. If the people are contentious and angry at each other, the Congress is going to emulate that. So I think that that this sort of thing is the best option. It's a way to de-escalate the situation and to basically make it so that we avoid civil conflict and civil war by making it a Supreme Court decision, but making it so that if the Supreme Court draws and doesn't have an obvious solution to the problem, where less than 75% of them can't decide one way or the other, then we use this option of bringing in the third person, right? So, very simple, very quick. You know, and probably a bit more rambly than it was warranted, but I wanted to go over a little bit on the details on that. So, thank you very much for watching. If you like this kind of content, kick that like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. Also hit the subscribes and the bells and all that stuff's for the algorithms. Even though I don't like the computer algorithms because they always ruin my life. I see your computers over there. What you doing? Anyways, thanks for watching.